You are about to hear the first psychedelic symphony ever written. Berlioz said so. This is the program he wrote for the symphony. A young musician of unhealthy, sensitive nature and endowed with vivid imagination has poisoned himself with opium in a paroxysm of lovesick despair. The narcotic dose he has taken was too weak to cause death, but it has thrown him into a long sleep accompanied by the strangest of visions in which his sensations, experiences, feelings, and memories find utterance in his sick brain into musical imagery. Of course, there is no evidence that Berlioz himself took opium, but he was given to extreme emotions and much lovesick despair. He had a wild imagination and a staggering musical genius. Remember as you listen that he was 26 when he wrote it, only a few years older than some of the young people on stage here. And remember, he wrote it only 3 years after Beethoven's death. He made sketches for it while Beethoven was still alive, and then wrote it in a white heat in 1830. What holds the 5 movements together? Well, a young woman, a very real young woman. Harriet Smithson was an Irish actress who took Paris by storm, acting Ophelia in Hamlet. Berlioz fell hopelessly in love with her. They never met. Actually, later they married, but that was a disaster. That's another matter. She is everywhere. She haunts the symphony, turning up all over the place. How can a young woman haunt a symphony? Well, give her a tune that intrudes and interrupts in different shapes. It's an idée fixe, an obsessive idea. She has taken possession of the composer's brain. We have to know this theme, the theme of the beloved, so that we will recognize it even if it appears in disguise. So here it is, appearing for the first time on a flute. It goes up and then falls hopelessly and pathetically down. It's a perfect representation of lovesick longing. Each time, more, then falling with despair. The first movement is called Visions and Passions. As you hear it, you may feel as though you're going crazy. The changes of tempo, the dynamics, wild crescendos, and sudden pianissimos. And the accompaniment. Well, at first there's no accompaniment. Then the cellos and basses go tugu, 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 tugu. He wrote to a friend about his beloved. She's still in London, and yet I seem to feel her near me. All my former feelings for her are aroused and combined to tear me to pieces. I hear my heartbeat, and its pulsations shake me as though they were the strokes of the piston rod of a steam engine. Of course, the steam engine had just been invented. All the jerky phrases, unexpected harmonies, uneven gestures, the wild tempo changes, it turns you into a nervous wreck. And that, of course, is exactly what he was trying to suggest, because this is music about a nervous wreck. It's controlled madness. The development section, yes, it is a sonata form on drugs. The strings describe his jealous rage and his frenzied suffering, while the winds express heartbroken sighs. It seems as though it's going to go over the edge into insanity, and sometimes it seems to do just that. He's only just in control. And then at the end of the movement, he discovers religion, For a very short moment, he goes to church to get some poise and repose. The second movement is a waltz. Imagine a grand ballroom in Vienna. Imagine chandeliers, ball gowns and tiaras and dancing couples. There are 2 harps. Nobody had used a harp in a symphony before, let alone 2 harps. He sees her in the distance. It drives him crazy. He's swept away in the crush of dancers. Suddenly cut off, the clarinet gives us the memory of Harriet Simpson, a momentary vision of tenderness and nostalgia. Then wild hysteria over the edge. The third movement, a country scene. At last he finds repose and solace. 2 shepherds, perhaps a shepherd and a shepherdess, an English horn and an oboe, off stage on another hill, call to each other across a great distance. The music expresses unsurpassable tranquility and reverent gratitude, so soft and delicate with whispering breezes. Then suddenly comes a moment of agonizing doubt. He doubts whether she will be true. Will she deceive him? Rumors are flying. She's having an affair in Ireland. Is she mocking him or taunting him? He's in terror and desperate with anguish. Then sunset, the end of the day, some distant thunder. One of the shepherds calls. This time, there's no reply, just menacing thunder and loneliness. The fourth movement, another nightmare. He dreams he's murdered her. He's taken out to be executed. He wakes up at dawn. We hear the procession to the scaffold, sometimes somber, sometimes wild, brilliant, solemn. He bows his head for the guillotine to fall, but suddenly he hears again the apparition of the young girl, a last thought of love. Then it's cut off by the guillotine, and if you listen carefully, 3 pizzicatos in the strings as his head rolls into the basket. The fifth movement, the witch's Sabbath. Dreaming he's dead, he is attending his own funeral. Ghastly, grisly shrieks of witches. Blood-curdling laughter of devils and demons. Ha, 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 ho, 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 ho. Glissando's weird screaming in the winds. First we hear the theme of the beloved, pianissimo, far away, off stage. She's coming to join the witch's Sabbath on a broomstick. The other witches see her coming. Then a great shout of joy. Let me break off for a moment for those listening who know this piece well. Berlioz marked this short passage, the shout of joy, at a metronome mark of 76 to the bar. But that is completely unplayable. It's not possible to play it. He cannot have meant it. He was such a careful and meticulous composer, and all his tempo markings are so right. Surely it must be a clerical error. He must have meant half note equals 76. Liszt made a piano arrangement of the piece. He was present at the first performance. He heard what Berlioz wanted. What he wrote in his version can only be played on the piano much slower. Tonight will be the first time it will be heard in Symphony Hall, played in what I am sure is the correct tempo. When you hear this unfamiliar moment, imagine gusts of uproarious laughter. Now, the girl is transformed into a ghastly, cruel witch. She appears on the E-flat clarinet, the cruelest, meanest instrument in the orchestra. Now the grotesquely distorted protagonist, Harriet Smithson, has become a prostitute. Funeral bells from a distant church, and then, of all things, the Dies Irae, the medieval chant for the dead, played on 2 ophicleides, which are now in modern times tubas, and 4 bassoons. Everyone in the audience at the first performance would have known that tune, and shudders of fear would have been running through that audience. Evil snakes on violas, rattling skeleton bones as the strings hit their instruments with the wood of the bow. And then Berlioz joins the Witches' Sabbath tune and the Dies Irae theme together. See if you can hear them both equally, the sacred and the profane. The symphony ends brilliantly in C major. A loud ending in C major tends to be triumphant and glorious, but there's no glory or triumph here. The final C major chord is garish and blinding. He isn't coming out noble and wise after his journey through hell. No, if you take a trip, there is no transformation. Have a good trip.